Saving builds your foundation, sowing expands your reach, and spending wisely makes your life enjoyable. Hey there, Flourish family. Welcome back to another episode of the Financial Flourish Podcast, where faith meets finance and wisdom meets strategy. I'm your host, Michele Pemberton, and today we're diving into something every financially successful person and every financially stressed person eventually has to learn: balance. The title of today's episode is Save, Sow, Spend: The Balanced Wealth Blueprint. You might be wondering why I call this episode the Balanced Wealth Blueprint. So let's talk about that word, blueprint. In construction, a blueprint is the plan the architect creates before anyone starts building. It shows exactly how the structure will come together, where the foundation goes, where the wall stands, where the doors open, and without that plan, the builders are just guessing. And guess what? It's the same with your money. If you don't have a financial blueprint, you'll build your life on reactions instead of strategy. You'll spend when you feel like it, save when you panic, and give when you're inspired. But there won't be a structure holding it all together. A blueprint brings order to your intentions. It's your roadmap. It tells your money where to go so you don't have to wonder where it went. The Save, Sow, Spend blueprint I'm sharing today is just that. It's a system for your financial house. Saving builds your foundation, sowing expands your reach, and spending wisely makes your life enjoyable. So think of today's episode like the drawing on the table before the building starts. You're not guessing, you're designing your future with purpose. So as you listen today, I want you to think like a builder, not just a dreamer. Because the truth is, wealth isn't built by wishing, it's built by design. And that's what this blueprint does. It helps you to put intention behind every dollar, every decision, and every desire. Now, let's talk about why so many people feel financially unbalanced in the first place. Most of you don't have a money problem, you have a balance problem. Some save and never spend, living in fear. Others spend freely but never sow. And some give to everyone and everything but forget to refill their own cup. In this episode, I'll break down a system that helps you live well, give generously, and build wealth without guilt or burnout. So let's start off with why so many people feel off balance financially. Most of you were never really taught how to manage money, just how to earn it or to spend. Balance is a lesson you learn through experience, and most of the time, it's a really hard lesson. According to our 2024 bank rate survey, it found that 65% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, even among those making over 100,000 a year. And I will assume that that ratio is similar in other countries around the world. So income alone doesn't create balance. Intentionality does. And here's what usually happens. You have emotional spending, right? So emotional spending replaces strategy. We've spoken about this in previous episodes, and you can actually go back to episode 9, where we did a whole episode on emotional spending. You remember that one where we talk about you spending because you were down, you didn't feel well, retail therapy? Go back and listen. And then the other thing that happens is that guilt creeps in. You start feeling badly because you spend too much or you're not giving enough. And then the third thing that happens is that lifestyle creeps in and eats up your progress. Yes, like now you think that you need to reward yourself and make sure that your lifestyle aligns with your paycheck or that big fat bonus that you just received. So what this means here is that balance doesn't happen automatically. It's designed. You can earn, give, and enjoy if you have a blueprint. So today we're going to look at three pillars for having a balanced wealth blueprint. The first one that we're going to look at is saving. Saving is your foundation. It's not just for emergencies. It's for stability, opportunity, and peace. According to the Federal Reserve in the US, they reported that nearly 40% of Americans can't handle a $400 emergency expense without borrowing. Wow. That means that one unexpected event can derail a household. When I say nearly 40% of Americans can't handle a $400 emergency, I'm not talking about theory. I'm talking about real life. And that's, being able to take that money from your savings and not using your credit card that you're not going to pay off at the end of the month. So think about it. Your car won't start one morning. You call the mechanic and he says it's the alternator, and that's $400. Or your child spikes a fever on a Friday night and you end up in the urgent care, the co-payment, the prescription, the missed work day, another $400. Or maybe your refrigerator stopped cooling, or your AC gives out in the middle of the summer. Just the service call alone can take a big chunk of your money. And this is something that I experienced 2 weeks ago when my AC stopped working. Now, none of these things are luxuries, they're just life. But when you don't have a cushion, one unexpected moment can spiral into stress, late payments, and anxiety. And we know normally one doesn't happen, another thing happens. We have that expression, when it rains, it pours. So that's why savings isn't about being cautious, it's about being covered. It's how you protect your peace. Saving protects your peace, it creates options, and it stops financial anxiety from dictating your decisions. So if you're wondering, what should I do right now because I'm in that same situation? Here's how to start. First, set a $1,000 starter goal. $1,000 is not a lot, but it creates an immediate confidence. And it doesn't matter if you're a high earner or a low earner. Just use $1,000 as your goal. Some of you can do this faster than others, and some of you might be able to do this right now in a week, based on what you're making. Then automate your savings. Even $50 a week, make it automatic. Don't make it emotional because we know where emotional spending gets us. And thirdly, start building toward your 3 to 6 months of expenses. And that's your stability zone. This will keep you stable and reduce your anxiety. Now, I have a story with one of my clients who was a freelancer, and you know how inconsistent income is if you're a freelancer. And so she was saying that, she can't save. It's too inconsistent for her and she can't save. She doesn't know what amount she needs to save. And so we came up with this plan where she was going to save 20% of whatever she receives. So every time she got paid, she was going to transfer 20% of that into her savings. And she was able to accumulate $4,000 in 9 months. So it's not hard, but now she has a different mindset. And we spoke extensively about our money mindset. So savings isn't about the amount, it's about the habit. Each deposit tells your brain, I'm secure, I'm smart, I'm in control. And make sure that you're not saving more than you can afford to save. Because some people start getting so ambitious and start saving, let's say $500 a month. And then before the end of the month, they're taking money from the saving because they cannot afford to live on what they have left. So don't program your brain to think that it's okay to take money out of your savings. Let's make saving a habit and not taking it out of our savings account prematurely. So that's pillar one. So pillar two will be sow. And this is where your money begins to work for you, because sowing means investing with intention, whether it's into the stock market, whether it's into people or purpose. And for this pillar, we're going to look at two different sides to sowing. We're going to look at financial sowing, which deals with investing wisely, and we're going to look at purpose sowing, which deals with giving generously. We're going to start with financial sowing. Now, if you start investing now, let's say $200 per month for 20 years, and you have, let's say, a 7% return, at the end of 20 years, you're going to have more than $100,000. And that's not luck, that's just compound growth. But fear holds people back. A study by Fidelity in 2025 found that 64% of women wish that they had started investing earlier, and nearly half of them said that they felt intimidated by financial jargon. This is something that we've gone through so many times on this podcast, that women felt like they were not worthy or they were not intelligent enough to invest. But the truth is that you don't have to be an expert. You just have to be consistent. Start with, low cost index funds, start with a mutual fund instead of stocks, because, stock is more risky. And once you start doing that, think of investing as a bill that you're paying to your future self. Once you have that mindset, I think it would be easier. Now, the other type of sowing is purpose sowing, and this is generosity. And we're going to look at a scripture, 2 Corinthians 9:6, and it says, "Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously." When you give, whether it's through tithing, offering, helping someone in need, or funding a cause you care about, you're sending your money on a mission. It's not a loss, it's leverage. Sowing keeps your heart open and your mindset abundant. It reminds you that money is a tool, not a master. A tool is something you use to build, to create, or fix something valuable. Let's take a hammer. You can build a house or you can break a window. It all depends on whose hand it's in and what their purpose is. Money works the same way. In the right hands and with the right mindset, it becomes a tool for peace, progress, and purpose. It pays for education, it helps others, it funds dreams, and it builds legacy. But when fear, pride, or comparison take you over, then money stops becoming your tool and it becomes your master. And when money becomes your master, it starts to dictate how you live. You make decisions based on fear instead of faith. You work out of anxiety instead of alignment. And you spend to prove something instead of try to fulfill something. The moment you start serving money instead of using it, you lose your freedom. That's why stewardship, not striving, is the goal. Money should serve you, it should serve your family and your calling, not the other way around, ladies. When you tell your money where to go, when you save with purpose, when you sow with intention, and you spend with wisdom, you're showing that money is your servant, not your savior, not your master. So let's use it wisely. Let's make it work for us, not rule over us. And so we come to the third pillar, which is spending. Spending isn't bad, it's how you spend that matters. The goal isn't restriction, it's responsibility. Now, there's a financial educator, Ramit Sethi, and he teaches something called conscious spending. It means spending extravagantly on what you love and cutting ruthlessly on what you don't. So let's look at an example. Suppose you love to travel. That's fine. You just have to plan for it. But you would have to cut back on some other things. You might not take out food too often, or you might not get involved in, impulse shopping. There's another study by McKinsey in 2024, and they found that 60% of consumers regret more than half their monthly discretionary purchases, mostly driven by boredom, stress, or emotion. Can you believe that? That's a lot of people who regret half of their monthly discretionary purchases. Now, if we have a plan in place, then we will eliminate or at least reduce, some of our discretionary purchases that are not planned. And one thing that you can do is create a simple structure. So you can have percentages for different categories in your life. For example, you might say 50% of my income is going to go to my needs. And your needs include your housing, your food, utilities. Then you can have 30% for your wants. So you can say, I want to have some fun, I want to travel, I want to, my lifestyle. And then the remaining 20% could be for saving, investing, or sewing. Now, what this approach does is that it builds freedom without the guilt. Spending purposefully allows you to enjoy life without sabotaging your goals. And, money isn't meant to be hoarded, it's meant to circulate through your life in ways that bring you peace, joy, and impact. So it's very important to spend. That's how the economy grows, that's how we enjoy our lives. And so we do not want to underscore the importance of spending. So now we looked at the three, and so we're going to bring them together: save, sow, and spend. And this is the rhythm of balanced wealth, which is what we're talking about today. Now, let me give you an example of how this can affect your life in a positive way if you use those percentages. So, I had a small business owner, and they were having issues similar to the one I said earlier. So, they decided to put some percentages in place. So, they did the 70-20-10 rule: 70% for living, 20% for saving, and 10% for giving. And within a year, she reduced her financial stress. It wasn't perfect, but her stress was reduced. She was able to live a much better life. And then we have another example of a couple, and they used a 50-30-20 plan. But what they did was say, in our 30% fund, we want to buy less things and have more shared experiences. And that made their life so much better. It reduced the stress, and they were able to do more things as a family, and it improved their life in general. So it's not a secret formula. You just have to make sure that you're following through, because it would be a waste of time if you put this blueprint together and not do anything at all. So balance is built one decision at a time. When you give every dollar a purpose, your money stops controlling you and starts serving your goals that you have in place. So, Flourish family, here's your challenge this week. Review your last 30 days of spending. I know we had a similar challenge for 3 months very early in the podcast, but now we're going to do something a little different. You're going to look at 30 days of spending, and you're going to label each item as either a save, sow, or spend. And then you're going to see where your balance really is. Now, if it's all spend, it's time to protect. If it's all save, it's time to enjoy. And if it's also, make sure you're also sustaining yourself, because wealth isn't built in extremes, it's built in balance. So remember, flourishing isn't about perfection, it's about progress, peace, and purpose. Next time, we're going to talk about generosity as part of building wealth. We're going to have a host who will be joining us. I hope that you tune in and listen to this podcast in the next 2 weeks. So today, I just want to thank you so much for joining us on the podcast on this episode. I hope that you're learning and you're not only listening, but you're applying these concepts to your financial life, because we know the Bible says that we should not just be hearers, but we should also be doers of the word. And it's the same thing here. Don't just listen, but actually put what you're learning into practice. Remember to connect with us. Go to our website, www.absoluteaccountingcpa.com/financial flourish. Look us up on Spotify. Look for Financial Flourish and subscribe to the podcast. And also follow us on Instagram @_Financial Flourish. We look forward to hearing from you. And as usual, take one step toward your financial goal, and don't forget to flourish.